Hi, this is Travis.
And this is Jonathan.
And we'd love to welcome you to the 100 Ways to Love a Cat podcast.
That is the podcast that eventually plays the song 100 Ways to Love a Cat.
And that song is definitely coming up. But do we have some amazing news to share with you? For those who do listen to this part and don't just fast forward to the song.
A lot of people fast forward. They have a button.
And that's fine.
It goes 15 seconds, just zooms right over everything you have to say.
If you're here for the song, I have no problem with that. But some people may be interested, and the men who wrote the song, maybe you would think. But that's, to each his own.
I like to think of it as, you know how when the bathtub is full of water and it's too hot? Oh, you're taking a bath. Mm-hmm. And it's so hot, and you have to go slow.
Slow, because if you can't go.
You can't just throw yourself in there like a dumb seal.
No.
First of all, you'd splash the water all over the
floor.
And you'd hurt yourself. And it's going to scald your skin because you ran it too hot. But if you go slow, like a smart seal, then you have time to adjust, to acclimate. And then by the time the song 100 Ways to Love a Cat begins to play, you're like, I'm ready.
I see. That makes sense.
So don't be a dumb seal.
Well, slow seals, even though slow is the right way to get in hot water, a great white shark will eat them. The seals, they have to be fast in certain situations. They have to be.
Well, they have to be fast or they have to be smart. You don't have to be both. It helps.
Well, sure. It helps
to be a seal.
But you just mentioned going slow.
Right.
Well,
I mean, look, if you're a seal, you're already in a lot of trouble.
That's true.
You got sharks,
That's true.
You got hunters, you eat fish all the time.
Global warming, everything
Global
is bad
warming.
For
I mean, the
seal.
water's going to boil.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, this is water, and then all of a sudden it's land. And you're like, well, I guess the humans never did fix their problem.
Fast or slow, you're doing the best you can.
That's everybody, though. That's
true.
People,
that's
too.
True. That's true.
Mr. Fast or Mr. Slow, the guy going down the road at 100 miles an hour and the guy going 35 miles an hour. You don't want to be around either one of them.
That's true.
So, it's life.
But I tell you who I do want to be around, who I've enjoyed being around. I don't know if you did listen last week. Jonathan got a new member of his family, and may I be so bold to say that it is legally now part of my family. We'll get into that. But Tacoitis the camel, just a beautiful animal. I like I've Lawrence of Arabia camels and
I think
Humps. Do you remember Humps?
Huh?
Humps. It was a film. The Benji man was in it. The man that had the Benji mustache.
He make it? Did he create a camel?
I believe he did, but there were several of them. Humps, I think, is the name. Like humps, but not really like a southern drawl. A hump. It's many years ago.
Somebody went to see that?
I don't know about that. I think maybe my dad took, just anything that I want to see the camels, Dad, or something like that.
I do know that about you. To me, the thing I like about camels is when you see a cartoon and they're in the desert and they're drinking from an oasis, and then they hear a noise and they look up, or something crazy happens and they look up and they're like, oh?
The camels.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You've seen that 100
Sure.
times.
Oh, of course. All those old movies had camels.
A funny, confused camel. I think one of the reasons I got this camel, and if you heard my confession last week,
you don't have to.
It was
get
a
into
fit
that.
of jealousy.
You don't have to get into that.
That was really sticking it to you, also, to get a camel, because I know you've always wanted a camel.
Well, I mean,
I went down to Clam Lake River, and I said, I want the greatest camel you have, and they said, well, we've got two. I said, which is. Are they the same? They said they're the same. They said you could have a field of 100 camels and they're all pretty much the same.
Pretty much the same, yeah.
So I said, well, it's one's foot was a little messed up, and they said, well, that one's the cheapest. And that's how Tacoitis the camel came into my life. And they shipped him and they delivered him, and I found out it was a boy, and he had, after I covered my apartment with hay, and he sprayed his territory, things settled down, and it's just a lot of munching, and they don't drink water at all.
Well, they do, but just they don't have to. That's what they store the water and the humps on their back. That's how they're able to be such a wonderful desert animal. That's the reason that they were used in that sort of climate, that sort of area.
But they eat hay. They do eat hay.
They do eat hay.
But
yes,
you don't
good.
have to give them any water ever.
Well, no, you have to. They have to have water, not as often as say
you
a
give
Barrington,
them a bath.
a pureblood Barrington prancing donkey. They need plenty of water. And yes,
See,
you do.
now you sound like an expert. And I
Well,
knew you had it in you.
It wasn't just me. I learned a lot over this week. We had quite a learning experience, and we owe that to pureblood Barrington prancing donkey judge Carrie B. Grant. We were concerned about having tacoitis and pretty tail in the same vicinity. You know,
We had talked about, we're going to get them together. We're going to take them
we
to
could,
the park.
but we didn't know if that was first off legal,
Right.
second of all dangerous. You know,
People want to steal your exotic animal.
well, also, but the animals themselves, if they did not get along,
Oh,
could they
that's
hurt
true.
one another? We didn't know. The proximity was concerning to us.
But then Rick burned his shed down, and it kind of forced the issue.
We had to do something, and before we made a sudden decision, we said, "Well, let's get on the horn, or to the post office, or did we call or did we write a letter? Or did
We called, and they instructed us to write
write a letter. That's
But let
correct.
me tell you something. If you ever write a letter to someone and say, please come right away, like
It takes a while to get there, and then sometimes for them to show up. But
like you wouldn't want to, like if I were Rick burning down my shed, I wouldn't send a letter to the fire department.
no,
But what he did was he got, drunkenly on the phone, said, I messed up again. And they came down and they hosed it. But by that point, it was too
it
late.
was already gone. Yeah.
And you were in a pickle.
Well, I'm just grateful that Pretty Tail was not in the shed at the time. That's a horrifying thought. I'm glad almost that this happened because I was leaving. I didn't realize I was leaving Pretty Tail in such a vulnerable place. I didn't know. I mean, I knew he
He
drank.
was taking all that money you were giving him.
Well, he had to have some money, and I knew, like I said, I knew he drank, but fire has never been an issue with him as far as I've known him over the years. And sure, everybody has a few in the evening, but yeah, I'm just grateful that Pretty Tail was not hurt. Pretty Tail is now staying with Jonathan for the time being. That's not permanent, and that's the other news we need to share.
There's plenty of hay to go around.
Pureblood Barrington prancing donkey judge Carrie B. Grant. This is a man that has meant so much. I mean, I wanted to learn about Pretty Tail. Sure, I wanted to be, current with all the information that there is out there, and evidently these pureblood Barrington prancing donkey judges are on top of all of this stuff, and we called. They said send the letter. We sent the letter, and it still was only like 2 days. I thought maybe it'd be a week, but it was only 2 days. He made arrangements and arrived, and
Apparently, the letter's more of a formality. He begins his journey to you when you complete the phone call.
Right. When you find it, but the letter has to be stamped before
That's
he can do
for
anything.
the records, right.
Right. He can't really do anything. He can, because he said in certain situations, we asked him about that, like he would get there and basically like you'd have to like put him up for a day or two before the letter came back stamped or before someone contacted him and let them know that it was stamped. But in this situation, everything was taken care of.
You're legally bound to put him up and
You
feed
have
him
to, yes.
whatever he wants. This is donkey law.
And this is all new to me learning this, and I'm telling you, pureblood Barrington prancing donkey judge Carrie B. Grant has just opened so many doors for me. It's like a new world that I'm looking at through a pureblood Barrington prancing donkey judge eyes, I suppose. Just so much about this animal I didn't know, and it turns out he knew almost as much about tacoitis, your camel, even though he did put us in touch with a camel expert, which I didn't realize there were judges for those. They're not. He said it was like they're not technically a judge. What did he say?
They're like
it was
a paralegal.
Paralegal, but still quite knowledgeable of camels. But we were concerned. Our main point of interest is, can these animals be together? We want to get, Pretty Tail and Tacoitis. We wanted to walk them together. We wanted to see, but we had to check with him. And it turns out...
We were afraid it was going to be like oil and water. Gross.
We were scared. We were nervous we were going to hear the news like, absolutely not. They cannot be anywhere in close proximity. You cannot have these animals. They'd have to be within, a restraining order or whatever. You can't get these two together. We were scared. We were nervous. And it turns out that is not the case at all. And after meeting Pretty Tail, who I found out that... pureblood Barrington Prancing Donkey judge Carrie B. Grant had already met Pretty Tail years ago through Uncle Gordon. That was quite, and so they had a history, a relationship.
Oh, that was probably when. What was it? That was when Gordon was worried about. He took his temperature. Well, he was like, well, how many times do I have to take his temperature when I think they're sick? Mm-hmm. And so he called the judge in for that. So the judge was there, and he ruled 6 times a day. And then the judge ruled, well, how high is a high temperature? And the judge ruled 101 degrees, which is, honestly, it's a little low because a donkey temperature, a pureblood Barrington Prancing Donkey temperature is usually like at like 115 is what they're usually cooking at.
I'm going to take the judge's word for it.
Well,
legally,
you have
legally
to.
Binding. I know. Well, after discussing with this camel paralegal, was it Tony? Was his name? I believe.
I don't. I mean,
can't remember.
It was cool that there's like
Teddy or Tony or something.
Yeah, it wasn't impressive. It's good. There's a camel thing, but
sure.
It's not like It's not like
it's not a
pureblood Barrington.
Yeah. No.
Prancing Donkey Judge Carrie.
Not in the same ballpark at all. No. But he did discuss tacoitis with Tony or Teddy.
Timmy.
Camel. Yeah. And after that discussion, and then after this amazing experience of putting these two animals together, which, let's be honest, it didn't look like it was going to go well at first. It didn't. This is what I was concerned. Does this judge know what he's talking about? What is happening here? But things turned out, he was right. We went through the rough patch. There were a few nips, a few bites, a scratch or two at first.
But the temperature stayed the same.
Temperature stayed the same
and
throughout.
He said that was a good sign.
Mm-hmm. It was a very good sign. And he determined after they spent, I would say, a good 4 or 5 hours, and things kind of calmed down probably. But they weren't fighting, but nervous and restless.
It was
tense. It was tense. But after the first couple of hours, it started to die down. Things seemed to be calm. Pure blood, Barrington Prancing Donkey Judge Carrie B. Grant told us that this is completely legal. He got the paperwork out. He signed it, that they must be married.
He performed the ceremony right then.
Right then and there. He said, these animals must be married now. This cannot wait. This has to happen. I am, being a judge, a justice of the peace.
And he played the piano beautifully.
He did. He can marry, it turns out, because obviously we know that he is a pureblood Barrington Prancing Donkey judge, but it turns out he can marry a pureblood Barrington donkey to any other animal if he so chooses. Because I was concerned, does he have authority over the camel? Which he did consult with Timmy.
Right.
But it's his call. He said this had to happen. It's a beautiful thing when you see these animals in matrimony like this. At first, it seems, that's a bit much or whatever.
We get so cynical nowadays because people just live together. Or they don't. I don't think we take the vows of matrimony.
I don't think so either.
Seriously anymore. And sometimes it takes something like this to really open your eyes
to
and
reaffirm
remember
what that means, what that stands for, what that kind of unity really is, and having a man as wise as Judge Carrie B. Grant.
That's the thing. It's not some dim bulb. It's a very wise. The expression "wise old donkey judge." That's where it comes from.
That comes from that. It comes exactly from that. And he's not just wise in the ways of pureblood Barrington prancing donkeys. He's wise in the ways of life and so in love, so many things. And to see, it was a beautiful ceremony, something that's, even those of you who may snicker at such a thing, I guarantee you would be teared up toward the middle or the end.
People
There's no
get
way.
Cynical and sarcastic, and they make jokes about, well, I don't want to go to a wedding.
Right.
Who wants to go to a wedding? Well, if you'd been there for this, you might change your tune. And I bet even the grinchiest heart out there would have a couple of tears welling up in their eyes.
Definitely. And to put the cherry on top of the whipped creamed drink, for him to say when he asked us, what kind of music would you like? Even though he played, Here Comes the in that case, the Camel. But he said, what kind of wedding music we have? And of course, the first thing that we said was our favorite song, 100 Ways to Love a Cat, thinking he was going to shoot that down immediately because this is a cat song and here's a camel and a Barrington prancing donkey. And he said, I think that's a beautiful thing.
I'll allow it.
And we sat there, animals and men together, and listened to this song, and it meant more to me maybe than it ever has. And excuse me, I don't mean to get choked up on here, but
people get cynical and sarcastic, and they forget there's real emotion behind these
and
things.
there's a lot of stuff that we have to deal with here. This isn't over. It's not done. It's not like you walk through. It's not like happily ever after. Judge Cary B. Grant says these animals must go on a honeymoon. That's required by law, and I thought that's a beautiful idea. That's great. Do we take them to the park? And he said, no, they have to go on a honeymoon. And
I thought the park would have been nice.
Well, that's what the animals enjoy the park. I thought they enjoy the outdoors.
We've really been trying to get them to the park, and it doesn't look like they're ever going to make it.
Well, turns out the vacation that he had a brochure. He showed us where they were going.
There's a beautiful cruise. It goes up through Alaska, and then
it's gorgeous. What do you call the lights? The northern
lights, and you take them up, and then I think they go. You catch a plane, and then you do a thing around the Mediterranean.
It would be beautiful. We won't be going. It'll be
It's basically a worldwide cruise.
It'll be Judge Cary B. Grant and the Tacoitis and Pretty Tail will be going. We will not be going. But even though we will not be going to animals of this size, of this girth, it is going to it's expensive. It's going to be over $10,000. It's going to be
it's an endeavor. I mean, you've got to get these two giant
I understand.
animals all the way around the world, like Amazing Race style. And Judge Cary B. Grant also, I guess, to take care of them as sort of a guardian.
He's the authority in this matter, and he says it, and his will be done. He is the expert. Far be it from me, but we are currently not in a financial situation where this is easily affordable for either myself or Jonathan. That's just not what it is. So we have set up.
That's an estimate. That's not the final.
No, it's over $10,000.
A travel agent.
He said I don't know how much over that is. That $1,500.
It could be
we don't know.
$10,000 a piece to send a camel
we don't know.
on a cruise.
We don't know. He said it will be over $10,000, and. At this point, like I said, we're just currently in a situation where that is not feasible for us.
So we have a GoFundMe set up.
Yes, and we know listeners, those of you who listen are interested in our story, would love to see these animals, to set them off in life in such a beautiful fashion.
Oh, it's heartwarming when you see a GoFundMe online if somebody's like, well, I'd love to get married, but I'm too poor. Can you give me $5 or whatever? That's one thing, but to see two majestic animals
like this
in love.
Oh God, I wish I could go. And I said, well, be sure.
We're forbidden.
We cannot go. And I said, be sure and take some pictures. And he said, no photographs can be made of these animals on this journey on their honeymoon. Again, these are legal situations that only a pureblood Barrington prancing donkey judge has knowledge of or can make. So
there's two great things that came out of this, and that I think is that Travis and I are closer than ever.
That's
said,
true.
You know what this is like? It's like the movie Father of the Bride.
It is. It's like seeing our children off
with Steve Martin, and we're both Steve Martin.
We're both two Steve Martins instead of which to be honest, I'd prefer that than Diane. No offense to Diane Keaton.
Well, that's not.
Well, I'm just saying.
And the other thing about it is that I know your Uncle Gordon is looking down from the big man upstairs, and he's saying, look what I did. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know if he had a master plan, if he knew this was going to happen, if he was like, I'm going to set these dominoes up.
He knew you really well. He may have heard you say, if I'm ever jealous, I'm going to get a donkey. I'm going to show them. He could have heard you say that in your sleep because, you could hear through the ceiling. I don't know.
I do talk in my sleep.
You do talk in your sleep. I don't know if that's the case, but either way, he
I
knew
can imagine a lot of scenarios.
What kind of man that you were. He certainly knew what kind of person I was, and I really did think he kind of set this in motion because he wanted the best for Pretty Tail, and I do too, and now I want the best for Taco-itis as well.
And Judge K.B. Grant said when he pronounced them married, he said, your name is Taco-itis Gordon, and your name is Pretty Tail Gordon, and you are the Gordons. That was a tribute to your uncle.
I know. Just the way things work out in life, isn't it something? And then, of course, he played the song I'm going to play right now for all of you, and I don't mean to be over dramatic or anything, but it was one of the most beautiful moments of my life so far. Just try and picture it while we listen to 100 Ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 1. Keep a tidy house for them. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 2. Be sure to clip their claws. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 3. Scoop their box daily. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 4. Brush them with a hairbrush. 100 loving ways. 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 There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 5. Don't squeeze their paws hard. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 6. Give them some fresh water. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 7. Let them have a fish. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 8. Buy them a scratching post. 100 loving ways. 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 There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 9. Put them in your lap. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 10. Be quiet when they're sleeping. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 11. Whisper, I love you. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 12. Rub their soft belly. 100 loving ways. 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 There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 13. Make sure their tail is clean. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 14. Give them a yarn ball. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 15. Make them a nice bed. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 16. Buy him some catnip. 100 loving ways. 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 There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 17. Play them some music. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 18. Get them a cute collar. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 19. Make sure they're vaccinated. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 20. Take their picture. 100 loving ways. 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 There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 21. Brush their teeth. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 22. Let them watch TV. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 23. Don't let them be outside by themselves. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 24. Feed them some cat food. 100 loving ways. 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 There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 25. Make sure their eyes are clean. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 26. Put a liner in their box. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 27. Give them a mat to wipe their feet on. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 28. Don't forget them on Christmas. 100 loving ways. 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 There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 29. Make sure they're spayed or neutered. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 30. Hold them like a baby. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 31. Let them have a towel or blanket. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 32. Keep your toilet lid down. 100 loving ways. 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 There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 33. Don't let them chew on power cords. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 34. Set them by the window. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 35. Cat-proof your home. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 36. Change their litter weekly. 100 loving ways. 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 There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 37. Praise them lavishly. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 38. Never feed him chicken bones. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 39. Teach them a funny trick. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 40.
Give them a toy mouse. 100 loving ways. 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 There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 41. Clean up their hairballs. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 42. Keep them away from candles. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 43. Give him a separate zone. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 44. Never play with them aggressively. 100 loving ways. 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 There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 45. Increase his cuddle time. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 46. Be sure to watch his weight. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 47. If you leave, turn on the radio. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 48. Scold him firmly but with kindness. 100 loving ways. 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 There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 49. Respond when he meows. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 50. Give them a thing of cat grass. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 51. Scratch under his chin. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 52. Remind him that you love him. 100 loving ways. 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 There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 53. Give them a box to play in. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 54. If they're old, help them get down. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Wait, 55. let them lick you with their rough tongue. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 56. Record precious memories. 100 loving ways. 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 There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 57. Dress them up in ribbons. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 58. Give them a flea treatment. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 59. Make a vet appointment. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 60. Give them a little wet food. 100 loving ways. 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 There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 61. When they scratch you, don't get angry. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 62. Give them some private time. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 63. Treat them with respect. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 64. When he grooms himself, say good job. 100 loving ways. 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 There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 65. Let them chase a laser pointer. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 66. Clean out their ears. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 67. Never smoke around them. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 68. Buy a sturdy cat carrier. 100 loving ways. 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 There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 69. Listen to them purr. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 70. into by temptations. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 71. Give them your full attention. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 72. Don't trap them in the laundry basket. 100 loving ways. 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 There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 73. Let them sleep in bed with you. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 74. Make sure they're not locked in the closet. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 75. Don't let them play in plastic bags. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 76. Give them a massage. 100 loving ways. 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 There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 77. Touch him as you pass by. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 78. If he's on the couch, don't be mad. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 79. If they hate fans, turn the fan off. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 80. When there's a bird outside, say, hey, look. 100 loving ways. 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 There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 81. Intrigue them with a funny sound. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 82. Don't forget sardine time. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 83. Let him play with your old socks. 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 84. Stroke in the direction that his fur goes. 100 loving ways. 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 There are 100 ways to love a cat. 100 loving ways. Way 85. Admire his long whiskers, 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat, 100 loving ways. Way 86, keep his box away from his food, 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat, 100 loving ways. Way 87, pretend that he's a piano, 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat, 100 loving ways. Way 88, don't interrupt them while they're eating, 100 loving ways. 100 loving ways, 100 loving ways, 100 loving ways, 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat, 100 loving ways. Way 89, when they're scared, go and comfort them, 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat, 100 loving ways. Way 90, let him have a lick, 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat, 100 loving ways. Way 91, if their breath stinks, give them greenies, 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat, 100 loving ways. Way 92, give him a ball with a bell in it, 100 loving ways. 100 loving ways, 100 loving ways, 100 loving ways, 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat, 100 loving ways. Way 93, if it's hot, put ice in their bowl, 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat, 100 loving ways. Way 94, let him drink out of the sink, 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat, 100 loving ways. Way 95, don't vacuum if it scares him, 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat, 100 loving ways. Way 96, draw a picture of him, 100 loving ways, 100 loving ways, 100 loving ways, 100 loving ways, 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat, 100 loving ways. Way 97, if you drop some food, it's theirs now, 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat, 100 loving ways. Way 98, read him a book, 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat, 100 loving ways. Way 99, feed him again, 100 loving ways. There are 100 ways to love a cat, 100 loving ways. Way 100, just love them every day, 100 loving ways, 100 loving ways, 100 loving ways, 100 loving ways, 100 loving ways. 100 loving ways, 100 loving ways, 100 loving ways, 100 loving ways, 100 ways to love. To love, to love, to love. Okay. 100 ways to love. Okay. My God, after yesterday's ceremony, I thought I knew all the ins and outs of this song. I've heard it so many times. I listen to it every week. It's a whole new song to me. After what we went through, that, again, just such a gorgeous, beautiful ceremony amongst beast and man.
And to think that we also played it at Uncle Gordon's funeral.
We did.
And at Pretty Tail and Tacoitis' wedding. And on this podcast, it just, what a versatile song. And I want you listening to this now, if you've not thought of what songs you want played at your funeral or your wedding.
It could be numbers. It could be the year that you die. This is up for
grabs.
This, absolutely. Anyone, I want anyone to use this song in any way that's positive,
definitely
in a beautiful way.
Think of number songs that correspond with your age. Definitely think of 99 Lufter Red Balloons.
Sure.
But also, especially think about 100 Ways to Love a Cat.
Please
because
do.
maybe you'll get to be 100 years old.
That's true.
What
That's
a wonderful
very true.
way to go out. And speaking of going out, how much money have we made? Let me pull this up on our GoFundMe.
On our GoFundMe. Let's see.
$32. Oh, that was a mistake. Because I accidentally put in that peculiar amount myself.
Oh.
I hit a... I thought...
Well, we give it time. It doesn't happen overnight.
Oh, wait. Now we're at 6... that was me. That was me again. I should put this down because I'm...
Yeah, but I'll look at it later. Thanks so much for joining us. We can't thank you enough for listening to the 100 Ways to Love a Cat podcast. We appreciate each and every one of you, whether you're here for us or the song. It's all good in our eyes.
Thank you so much.